Yeehaw! Welcome back to Cinema Surfer. We're here with another how to draw video today. So instead of teaching you how to draw one character, I'm going to teach you to draw not two, but three different characters, specifically three different toys. So Toy Story 5 is coming out. Everybody loves Toy Story. I love it. You love it. All the kids love it. So I figured I'd go ahead and teach you how to draw Mr. Potato Head, Buzz Lightyear, and then Woody, which kind of explains the cowboy get up today. So with all that being said, remember to like, subscribe, check out the art merch store. You can buy all of my artwork on different t-shirts, mugs, stickers, you name it, we got it for you. You know where to check it out. There's a link to that in the channel description. And with all that being said, sit tight, get your saddle ready, and we're going to go ahead and jump in and learn how to draw some characters from Toy Story. Alright, so one of the first things we're going to do is start with Mr. Potato Head. And Mr. Potato Head's a fun character, you know, there's not really much to him. You don't have to worry about muscle structure or anatomy or anything like that like we always talk about. Instead, you just have to worry about making a potato. So one of the easiest way to think about a potato is visualize it in your head. When you go to the grocery store, what does a potato look like? To me, it has one big circle on the bottom and it has a tiny smaller circle on the top, and you just kind of connect them with an oval shape. Okay? Pretty straightforward. Also, remember, you can always use references to help you. Google what a Mr. Potato Head looks like and it has that overall shape to it. Just do that. But one thing that is kind of fun about Mr. Potato Head is you can pretty much put those pieces wherever you want. If you want him to have more of a, you know, typical anatomy structure with the two eyes on top and the nose and the mouth on bottom, then do that. But for me, I wanted to change it up and do something a little bit different. So I wanted to mix around the pieces on his face. I mean, what's the point of having a Mr. Potato Head if you're not going to do that anyway? So I was thinking about, you know, there's a scene in the very first Toy Story where he walks past somebody and he's like, hey look, I'm Picasso, and his face is all jacked up. I kind of wanted to incorporate that into this picture a little bit. By the way, if you haven't checked out our Toy Story reaction to the first movie from 1995, go ahead and check that out. That's on the channel as well. You'll probably dig it. But yeah, he's not too bad. Once I kind of have his overall shapes and where I want the arms and legs to be and stuff like that, is when I go ahead and I start adding my details to it, specifically with outlines. I am going to do this one a little bit different in regards to having an outline, so stay tuned for that, but I'll explain it when we get there. But another fun thing about Mr. Potato Head is you can over-exaggerate those pieces a little bit. Like for example, his nose is kind of big and cartoony, so if it's not 100% accurate to a human's nose, that's fine, go with it. He's just a toy, and sometimes the more over-exaggerated you can make these things, the better they end up looking. Because a lot of people will fall into the pitfalls of, oh, it has to be perfect, it has to be, you know, very symmetrical, what's on the left side has to match the right side. That's not always true when you're drawing things like that are cartoonish or animated. Sometimes the more over the top you can make them, the better they look, which you can kind of see with his overall eye shapes, right? Yeah, they're kind of nearly the same size, but I bet if you took both eyes and you actually put them next to each other, one might be a little bit bigger than the other. One of the challenging things with Mr. Potato Head though was his tennis shoes, because he has these big blocky feet, but something else that makes him, you know, kind of a special toy is he has these little pegs for all of his pieces. So I wanted to incorporate those little peg pieces, because if not, the drawing might look a little bit flat. So you can kind of see right underneath his body where his shoes connect, I put a little hint at those pegs, and the same thing with his arms and his ears. Okay, so if you see those pieces, you know, if you're drawing this with me, add them to yours. They just help to give the character a little bit more depth. Another good thing about drawing something like Mr. Potato Head is this is a Pixar character, right? So when you think about Pixar, all of them are, you know, three-dimensional. They don't really have hard structured outlines. So with this one, even though I mapped out an outline originally, I thought, you know what, let's have some fun with this and let's delete some of those outlines and kind of give him an overall structure just with color only. That is something that a lot of more modern artists are typically doing, especially the ones you follow on Instagram and stuff like that. They purposely leave out outlines on their characters, and it's just kind of a new style that's going around, but at the same time it matches that three-dimensional Pixar style, I guess, if you wanted to call it that. One thing you do want to keep in mind though is if you're deciding like me not to go with a hard outline for this, then you have to incorporate a lot more shadows and you have to incorporate a lot more lighting to your picture, so that way it doesn't look flat. Most of the time when you look at 2D animation, the harder outlines kind of tell you where the arms and shapes are going to be, and you know what musculature is lying on top of something else. When you don't have those hard lines, then you have to rely on the shadows a little bit more. So as you can see that a little bit with his potato shape. Near the bottom is when I start to use a little bit of a darker brush to add in those shadow shapes, and the same thing with the area under his head where his hat sits. It also helps the character give him a little bit more vibrance and energy as well. One thing to keep in mind too is depending on how you draw something, you don't always need a lot of lighting if you know how to incorporate shadows. So for this one, for example, there's not a lot of extra lighting I added to him except for the little tip of his ear, and that's about it. A lot of his lip structure is just with shadow outlines, and the same thing with his tennis shoes and his eye sockets as well. So that's Mr. Potato Head. He's a fun character. I did add the little quote on top about, look, I'm Picasso, just to give him a little bit more energy with this picture. But he's not too bad. He's pretty fun, and to be honest, if you mess up or it doesn't look 100% perfect, that's fine. He's a toy and he's also a cartoon, so being a little bit over exaggerated here and there, that's what drawing's all about, so have fun with it. All right, next we're gonna go ahead and slide into our next character, which is Buzz Lightyear. Alright, so Buzz Lightyear is a fun character for me. I love him. I think of all the Pixar characters, he might actually be at the top of the list for me, only because he's larger than life, and at the same time he goes through these life struggles that people don't really comprehend until they become adults. For example, just like in the first movie, what if you believe something your whole life and that's how you thought your life was going to go, and then it gets turned on its head and you realize it's all a lie? Like, what would that do to you mentally? And I thought that was an awesome arc for Buzz Lightyear, and at the same time, it's kind of funny that he has a little bit of a mental breakdown when he finds out the truth that he's actually a toy. But with that being said, when drawing Buzz Lightyear, to me, because he is a little bit larger than life, it's fun to put him in more comic booky poses compared to the other toys. For example, if he has these big wings that kind of shoot out, then he should always be in kind of like a flying pose. And for this one, I kind of wanted him to be flying more towards the camera as opposed to straight up, just to give him a little bit more of an action range and make him feel like he's from a comic book or a serialized TV show. One thing to keep in mind with Buzz Lightyear is if he's coming at you, then this fist should be a little bit larger than the rest of his body proportions, because that's like the first thing you're seeing. At the end of the day, he is a toy, so yes, he does have like humanoid anatomy a little bit. He also has things that you have to keep in mind of. For example, if he's an action figure, he doesn't have normal elbow joints or shoulder joints or knee joints like we do. Instead, he has like these big socket areas, and it kind of reminds me of those old school G.I. Joe figures. So that's something you want to keep in mind as well. Do you need them in your picture? Not necessarily, but if you add them, it just helps give him the overall toy aesthetic. And the same thing with some of the other pieces, like the little things on the side, those buttons that kind of do his helmet backwards. I like to incorporate stuff like that as well. And the same thing with his buttons on his little chest piece. But yeah, once I have all those things in, I go in with my final outlines. Now for this one, to be honest, this is actually a really old picture I made. I think I drew this one when they made that live action Buzz Lightyear, so that was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I think. But what I wanted to do with this one is go back and kind of, retouch on things and kind of change it up a little bit just to make him look a little bit more lively and see if there was anything I can improve on. With the colors of Buzz Lightyear though, he does follow that typical 80-60-40 rule. Sometimes it's 80-60-20 depending on how you want to look at it, where it's 80% one color, 60% another color, and then the final percentage is the smallest color. For example, to me, a lot of his outfit and toy aesthetic is like big white pieces, kind of like an astronaut. And then he has a little bit of green on him, right? Especially on his chest piece and different accents on his arms and his feet. And then he kind of has a little bit of purple, specifically with the wings. And I always thought it was cool that when you draw Buzz, he has like these I don't know what you would call them. I guess they're kind of like weird suspender straps that hold his chest piece in line. I like adding those in as well. One thing to keep in mind with Buzz too is adding the helmet color. Like, how would the helmet color look, especially if you're not seeing it, you know, from a stereotypical standpoint where his head is going upwards this way. If he's coming at you, how do you incorporate that helmet shape? So what I learned and what I started to do with this one is with Procreate, you can add a little bit of a new layer on top and change the opacity just to make it feel like, oh, there is like a little bit of film or plastic on top of his head. So that way it's not like it's super clean and smooth. It feels like there's something kind of distorting the vision a little bit, and that gives you the overall helmet look. So as you can see, that was what my old picture looked like years ago. And I thought, you know what, for this one, I kind of want to give him some of those vibes I gave Mr. Potato Head in the first drawing, where I kind of get rid of the outlines and I focus only on the color dynamics, okay? So I went over my old picture. I already had everything in place. I had the shapes, I had the outline, I had the structure. So now it's really just going back in and playing with the colors a little bit and deleting some of those lines. By the way, I really like that background to this picture. I think I learned how to do that from someone else on YouTube, if I remember correctly. That was a cool learning tutorial. If I find that, I'll incorporate it in the channel description. But overall, you can kind of see once I start adding, you know, the base colors in, I go in with the highlights and stuff like that. And even though there are no outlines to this picture as well, just adding those highlight elements really gives him some range and makes him feel a little bit more three-dimensional as opposed to a flat two-dimensional cartoon. But yeah, other than that, some other last minute things you want to keep in mind when you're drawing Buzz Lightyear is his little chest piece. I think it's for a Star Command. It has an interesting shape. You can do it in different ways, but for me, I kind of like making it look like it has like these little eagle wings and kind of has like a little bit of a like rocket ship in the middle. With a picture like this, one thing you want to keep in mind as well, just due to scale, is you don't always have to add every single detail that you see in the movie, especially if it's this type of structure and design. For example, when you look at Buzz Lightyear, that little yellow piece, that's his name tag, and I think it says Lightyear on it. I could have incorporated that into this picture, but I think it would have just looked off and it would have looked a little bit forced. And sometimes when you draw, you don't want things to feel forced or look like I have to incorporate all of these elements. It's okay to leave things out here and there if it helps the overall structure of your picture. So sometimes when you're drawing or you're making art, feel free to take some liberties. If it's not 100% what you remember or what it looks like to you, that's fine. It just makes your personality of the character come out a little bit more. So there you go, that's pretty much Buzz Lightyear. So not too bad. You just have to remember, he's a toy and he's larger than life. So if you make a few mistakes along the way, that's cool. Use them to your advantage. If his chest is a little bit bigger in your picture, that's cool. If you incorporate some of those socket joints like in his shoulders and elbows and stuff like that, and they feel a little bit out of place, that's okay. It's not going to look 100% perfect, because at the end of the day, you're not really drawing a person, you're drawing a toy. So have fun with it. And then last one I'd figure I'd teach you guys how to draw was Woody, everybody's favorite cowboy. So Woody's great, I love him. For this video, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of skip over mapping out the characters on the page. You can kind of see my rough outlines there anyway, so if you want to pause it, feel free to do so you can do the same thing on paper or on your iPad. But I'm just gonna focus more on the colors and the dynamic and the outline of these two characters. One thing that I love about Woody is he's over the top and he's always screaming and yelling and he's in these crazy positions and his arms are flailing around. While that makes him a really fun character to watch in a movie, when you're drawing him, it kind of makes him a little bit more challenging. And the same thing goes for Bullseye as well. One thing to keep in mind with Woody is because he's mostly a doll, he doesn't have normal articulation like a person would. Specifically, anywhere that's a joint, like his elbow and his wrist and his knees, they're kind of very thin and very flat, so they can flare around. But then you also have to keep in mind, if those are flat, then you have to add a little bit more stuffing and like puff to his like forearms and his like thighs and calves and stuff like that too. You know, once you kind of learn that a little bit, it's not too bad. Another thing that's kind of fun with Woody is adding the colors to him, because with this one I wanted him to have a little bit more of a toy-like essence, but at the same time you have to keep in mind that, you know, if you've ever had a Woody or you played with the little doll as a kid, a lot of it is really just cloth. So you don't want the colors to be too flat. You want them to feel like they have a little bit of tangibility to them. Specifically, I'm very proud of how the denim and jeans came out on Woody. If you're curious how I was able to do that on the iPad, I started with like a very simple layer of blue as my foundational color, and then on top of that I used like a grain brush and added a little bit of light blue as a grain to highlight some of the sections, and it just gave his pants a little bit more of a denim feel, and I'm really happy with how those came out. But another thing with this one is I thought, you know what, compared to my Mr. Potato Head and Buzz Lightyear figure, for this one I really want to add an outline to it. I don't know why, sometimes it's good just to go back and forth and just see what works best for you. But overall I'm really glad that for this one I added more of a harder outline. It just gave this character a little bit more depth and range, and it made him feel a little bit more different compared to the other two. But yeah, you know, once you kind of model where everything is going to be on the page, one thing that is cool with Woody as well is he has that little pull string, reach for the sky on his back, so I wanted to incorporate that as well. Now when you look at it in the movies and stuff, it's not necessarily super long because it's just a little string, but I thought, you know what, for this one, because it's my drawing and I can kind of do whatever I want with it, and he's a cowboy, I thought it'd be kind of fun if I made his string kind of like a lasso, so he's kind of stringing it around. I don't know, I like it. You don't have to incorporate it if you don't want to, but I thought it would be fun and add a little bit of dynamic to the page. But once I kind of have his overall structure in is when I go and I start working on Bullseye. Now normally I don't really draw 2 or more characters on the page just because I feel like it takes up more space, and then it kind of makes my overall drawings feel a little bit more condensed. But I was thinking, you know what, for this one, let's go ahead and have some fun with it. If Woody's a cowboy, he needs his horse. Let's go ahead and incorporate Bullseye on the page. One thing to keep in mind, this is just some advice from me, maybe it'll help you out as well, is when you draw more than one character on the page, to me it's easier if you start with one character first. That way you kind of have a sense of scale of how big something is going to be, as opposed to trying to do them both at the same time and then things just look off and you have to go back and erase something or start from scratch again. To me, just start with one, map out where you want that character, and then kind of go back in and add the other characters with them. For example, for this one, I did start with Woody, just kind of getting a general shape of where I wanted him to be on the page, and then I went through and I kind of mapped out where I wanted Bullseye to be. Then I started adding my outline to Woody, then I would go back and do the same thing for Bullseye, and as you can see now, same thing with the color. As opposed to trying to do 2 different colors for 2 different characters at the same time, that would really kind of like stress out your brain a little bit and you would feel overwhelmed. Focus on one first. When you're happy with that one, then transfer to the next one. Another cool thing with, you know, drawing Bullseye is very similar to Woody. He's kind of made of like this cloth-like material, and that was a little bit of a challenge trying to incorporate, well, how do I make this look like it's like a toy or has texture but isn't 100% like super realistic, because I still wanted it to have an animated feel. So I pretty much decided, you know what, I'll add a little bit of some grain on them, kind of like what I did with Woody's jeans, but I don't want it to be too heavy, because at the end of the day you want it to feel smooth and kind of soft, right? He's like one of those soft toys, like a plushie in a way. So I thought making a little bit of grain for texture but not overdoing it would really help with this character. When it comes to animals and you know, creature anatomy and stuff like that, is with Bullseye you have to think about his leg shape and his ear shape and his tail shape. What's fun about him is because everything's kind of made of cloth, you can kind of be a little bit more fun with it and a little bit more loose with your drawing. For example, if you look at his legs and feet, he doesn't have typical leg structure like a horse does, where they kind of have the high ankles on the back and they kind of walk on their toes and stuff like that. He's kind of more of like a soft plushy toy, so his legs can have a little bit more dynamic to them and kind of go in all different directions. So that's something you want to keep in mind as well. Same thing when it comes to his eyes, because his eyes are kind of like hard plastic on top of a plushie. Find ways to add a little bit of lining, but sometimes less is more. Because they're hard plastic, there's not a lot of color to them. Just keep them all simple with white. Maybe add a little bit of a shadow area at the base of his eye, but besides that, there's not really a lot of things you need to add to them. You don't need like color or irises or anything like that. He's just a cute over-the-top toy. But yeah, once I kind of have those in, another thing that kind of made my Bullseye feel a little bit more like a soft toy, I guess you could call it toyification of this picture, is I went ahead and I added some sewing lines to him. Because if you keep in mind, anything that's soft and, you know, cute that you want to lay your head on or play with, specifically toys, you can always see the lines where they were like stitched together. So I wanted to add those little stitch lines on Bullseye, specifically on his leg, but also at the base of his neck, so you can kind of see, oh, so when someone made this toy years ago, they pretty much took that area, stuck it on the body, and then took the legs and sewed those on the body as well. But yeah, that wasn't too bad. I did decide with the like straddle area that Wody's kind of sitting on, maybe that might be made of plastic a little bit. I don't remember. I don't think I've ever owned a Bullseye. I know for sure I had a Woody growing up, but I think by the time Toy Story 2 came out, I was a little bit older by that point, and I never really owned a Bullseye, so I don't really know what they look like in person. I'm just going based on what I remember in the movie and reference pictures and stuff like that. One thing I do remember though about all the toys in Toy Story is they all have the little Andy letters at the bottom of the feet. I think now they changed it to Bonnie or something like that because that's the new kid's name. But for this one, Andy's the kid I grew up with, so I thought, you know what, I'll go ahead and add those little markered letters at the bottom of Bullseye's feet as well. So that's pretty much both of these guys. I'm really happy with how they turned out. They really look like, you know, they have a lot of character dynamic to them. But I figured, you know what, for this one, let's add a little bit of a background. I do want them to be the center focus, and that's the thing your eyes should be drawn to. But just adding a hint of something going on behind them, I don't know, it just gave the picture a little bit more depth. So because both of these guys are from the Wild West and, you know, they're cowboys and horses and stuff like that, I thought let's kind of give an overall lasso shape. And I found this, you know, very simple design as clip art. So I went with that one, kind of traced it in. And then I thought, you know what, let's give it more of a Grand Canyon Wild West feel in the background. I didn't want it to look super detailed or very realistic because that wouldn't match the tone of the picture. So I just went with something a little bit more simple so you can kind of get the idea of a canyon shape. Played with the colors a little bit, changed the lighting, and then after that, that's pretty much it. There's not much to it. I did add a little bit of grain on top of the image just to give it like an overall textured paper feel, but that's pretty much Woody and Bullseye in a nutshell. So hopefully you enjoyed this. I love both of these characters. To be honest, I love all the Toy Story movies and all the characters in them. They all stand out, they all have personality, and I am looking forward to checking out Toy Story 5. So there you go, we just learned how to draw 3 different characters from Toy Story: Mr. Potato Head, Buzz Lightyear, and Woody. Hopefully this was helpful for you. Feel free to go back, rewatch the videos, rewind it, slow them down, pause them here and there. Do whatever is gonna make your art stand out and look better. So there you go. That's some advice from Cinema Surfer. Remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Don't forget to check out the art merch store. And don't forget to check out our reaction to the first Toy Story movie. That's on the channel as well. Peace out. I'll see you in the next video.